Salutations, fellow students. I acknowledge that you have the capacity to be uninformed about the subject matter of my discussion point this very day. So I shall enlighten you with reference to what it is. Now you might be perplexed, dumbfounded, baffled even, once you comprehend my talking point this very evening. But you undoubtedly, conscientiously, will familiarize yourself with the subject matter of today's scripture. But to do that, I will talk like a normal person for the preponderance of this speech. Look, I barely even understood what I just said, and I wrote it. So imagine if everything you read was this convoluted. One thing you might have noticed was how big and useless the words I used were. Does this ever not bother you, annoy you, that they could have just used a smaller, much simpler word? Well, today, I shall mention ratiocination, to dispense with considerable size, chosen vernacular, dispensed with my eloquence, surrounding the talking point, the discussion point, why we should stop using big and complicated words. One, first point, and the most crucial point. No one cares to understand what these words mean. Now, I get it. Some people's vocabulary is more comprehensive or extensive than others. But this is no excuse to use all these big, dumb words. Think about this. Think about what happens if you're trying to tell someone a fact to save people from rare diseases, but you use some dumb word like pneumo-ultramatic microscopic silicoviconosis. This is just a word that means you got lung disease from breathing in silica. But how many of you guys knew that? Now I get this could be a little bit of an extreme example, but the point I'm trying to make is dependent on the situation you're in, it could be dangerous to use some of these gargantuan words. Another example would be if you're watching the news or a sporting event and they're saying all these words that nobody's ever heard of, the people at home won't know what they're trying to say. Not only are they tough to understand, but they're burdensome to read and write. Just for this speech alone, I had to read it over many times just to not mispronounce the preponderance of this speech. And even then, I'm still going to mess up. Like right now. This also applies to one's analyzation of their chosen piece of literature. Like, if I can't read the lion's share of the novel instructed to me by my professor of literacy, how shall I pass his class? This also goes for, what? Oh, thank you. This also goes for hearing other people's speeches. For example, they could have the best speech in the entire world, but if the language is just too smart for me, I think they made all the words up. Now, spelling these words, not just in my speech, but in all these speeches, is a waste of your time and the audience's time, as they would have understood it if you just used the more simpler word, and it would have been less time-consuming. You can write all these words, but at the end of the day, who are you really trying to impress? See, I believe the people who use these big words are just trying to sound smarter than they actually are, because they're not smart at anything important. One more tag. The only reason I say this is because there's truthfully no reason under any circumstance that anyone should ever talk like that. The reason being is everyone would have understood you if you had just used the more common word, and you wouldn't be yapping for so long. This goes perfectly with my next point. Most people with large, big vocabularies, love to add filler words into texts or actual conversations, like they're trying to meet the word count of their essay. Well, to conclude my declaration, I shall allude to my postulation, or some might say dissertation, on why these colossal and ill-placed words ought to be banished. For one, they are too tough to understand, incredibly inopportune to read and or write, and last, but definitely not least, no one likes or cares that you know how to say these words. These are all completely clear reasons on why we should all stop using these big, dumb words. Now, audience, if you come across someone who's speaking to you as if they read every page of the dictionary, I would like you to tell them to keep it simple.